pregnancy test hit the marble floor before Elena's hand even registered that she'd dropped it. She would remember that sound for the rest of her life. Plastic against stone, small and quiet, and yet loud enough to end everything. Because in the same second she heard it fall, she watched her husband's mouth pull away from another woman's lips. Rain hammered the windows of the Grand Seoul Hotel's presidential suite, but Elena barely noticed it. 20 minutes earlier, she had been laughing in the elevator, one hand pressed flat against her stomach, rehearsing the words she planned to whisper into Minjun's ear the moment she found him alone. "You're going to be a father." She had practiced saying it 4 different ways on the drive over. She never imagined she would say nothing at all. Seo Ye-rin sat curled on Kang Minjun's lap like she belonged there, one hand still resting against his jaw, and for a moment neither of them noticed the door had opened. Then Minjun's eyes lifted, and Elena watched the color drain out of his face in real time. "Elena!" He shoved Ye-rin off him so fast she nearly fell from the chair, but it didn't matter. There was no version of this that could be undone. Elena had already seen it. Her mind had already burned the image into permanent memory. His hands on another woman's waist, his award for Business Leader of the Year sitting forgotten on the side table, the woman's lipstick smudged against his collar. "It's not what it looks like," Minjun said, standing so fast he knocked over his champagne glass. It shattered against the floor, but even that sound felt distant to Elena, muffled beneath the roaring in her own ears. She didn't answer him. She didn't trust her voice yet. Instead, she walked forward, slowly, deliberately, and knelt to pick up the 3 things that had fallen from her purse. The pregnancy test, the tiny white baby shoes she'd bought that morning on a whim, unable to help herself, the card, still sealed, still unread by the only person it had been written for. She set them down on the glass coffee table, one at a time, like she was laying flowers on a grave. "Elena, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" Her voice finally came, quiet and steady, which frightened him more than shouting would have. "Explain how long this has been happening. Explain how many award ceremonies I wasn't invited to because you were already occupied. It happened once. I swear to you, it was one time. I don't even—" "Stop!" She held up a hand, and something about the gesture made him actually stop, mid-sentence, mid-lie. "I don't want an explanation, Minjun. I want you to look at what's on that table." He looked. His eyes moved from the pregnancy test to the tiny shoes, to the card with his name written on the envelope in Elena's handwriting. She watched his throat move as he swallowed. "I came here tonight to tell you we were having a baby," she said. "I wanted it to be the best night of your life." His knees buckled. He caught himself against the arm of the chair, and behind him, Ye-rin had gone very still, watching the 2 of them like she'd wandered into a play she no longer had lines for. "You're—" Minjun's voice cracked. "Pregnant?" "Was," Elena said. "I don't know what I am now. A wife who just watched her husband cheat on her, I suppose. That's the only thing I'm certain of." "Elena, wait, please, we can fix this. I'll do anything." She slid the wedding ring off her finger. It came off easier than she expected. She had always thought a marriage ending would feel like tearing something, but it didn't. It felt like setting down something she'd been carrying too long. She placed it in his open, shaking palm. "Our child," she said, "deserved a father who didn't have to choose between 2 women on the night he found out he was going to have one. Please don't leave. Please, Elena, I'm begging you, don't touch me." She turned and walked toward the door. Behind her, she heard him call her name once more, heard the desperate scramble of his footsteps, but she didn't look back. She walked past the hotel staff who had welcomed her so warmly less than an hour ago, past the elevator attendant who asked if she needed anything, out into the rain-soaked Seoul night, and she did not stop walking until she could no longer hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. By the time Minjun made it down to the lobby, she was already gone. Hua Hua searched everywhere. He called every number he had for her, and every call went straight to a disconnected line. He drove to their apartment and found her closet half empty, her side of the bed untouched, as though she'd never planned to come back to it. He checked the airports, the train stations, every hotel within 50 miles, working through the night with a desperation that bordered on madness. His assistant found him at 4 a.m, sitting on the floor of their bedroom, still in his tuxedo, holding one of Elena's scarves like it was the only proof she had ever existed. By morning, her office confirmed she had resigned. By the following week, her social media accounts were gone, her bank accounts closed. It was as if Elena Brooks had never set foot in Korea at all, as if their entire marriage had been erased along with her. The only thing she left behind was the pregnancy test. Minjun kept it locked in his office safe, and every morning, for longer than he wanted to admit, he opened that safe just to look at it, just to ask himself the same unanswerable question. Did she keep our baby? Elena landed in Toronto with 2 suitcases and a heart that felt like it had been scraped hollow. She told herself she wasn't running from Minjun. She was running towards something, a version of her life where no one could hurt her the way he had, where her child, or children, whatever came, would never have to watch their mother wait by a phone for a man who had already made his choice. She rented a small apartment above a bakery in the West End. She found work at a mid-sized architecture firm, taking on whatever projects no one else wanted, working 12-hour days until her body ached with exhaustion, and she could finally sleep without dreaming of a hotel room in Seoul. When the twins arrived, 6 weeks early, in the middle of a February snowstorm, with Elena gripping a stranger's hand in the delivery room because she had no one else to call, she cried harder than she had the night she left Minjun. Not from grief this time, from something that felt, impossibly, like hope. She named them Noah and Naya Brooks. When the nurse filling out the birth certificate asked about the father's information, Elena looked down at her son's small, sleeping face, and then at her daughter's fierce, unblinking eyes, and she said simply, "I'll raise them." The line for the father's name stayed blank. She built her life around those 2 children the way she had once built buildings, carefully, deliberately, with a foundation strong enough to withstand anything. She worked while they napped. She studied for her licensing exams after they went to bed. Slowly, painstakingly, she built her own firm, one contract at a time, until Brooks Architecture became one of the fastest-growing design studios in the city. Noah grew into a quiet, curious boy who took apart the toaster at age 6 just to understand how it worked and cried when he couldn't put it back together. Not from failure, but from the loss of a mystery solved. He built model airplanes with the meticulous patience of someone twice his age, lining them up on his windowsill by wingspan. Naya was his opposite in every visible way, loud where he was quiet, fearless where he was careful. But she guarded her brother with a ferocity that made Elena's chest ache with pride. When a boy at school shoved Noah for being weird, Naya had marched up to him and informed him, with the full authority of a 7-year-old, that her brother was going to build the planes that boy would fly in someday, so he'd better apologize. He apologized. Elena never spoke about their father, not because she wanted to hide him, but because there was nothing true she could say that wouldn't hurt them. Your father chose someone else on the night I told him about you. How does a mother explain that to a 5-year-old who only wants to know why other kids have 2 parents at school pickup? So she filled the silence with love instead. Weekend hikes, Sunday pancakes shaped like their initials, bedtime stories she made up herself, always featuring a mother bird who could build the strongest nest in the whole forest, all on her own. It was Naya's accident, a bad fall from the jungle gym at school, a fractured wrist, that brought Dr. Daniel Carter into their lives. He was the on-call pediatric surgeon that afternoon, and Elena remembered the way he'd knelt down to Naya's eye level in the emergency room instead of talking over her head, the way he explained the X-ray in words a 7-year-old could understand, the patient, unhurried calm of him. "You're very brave," he told Naya, setting her cast with careful hands. "Braver than most of my adult patients, honestly." "I know," Naya said, sniffling but proud. "I didn't even cry." "I noticed. That takes real strength." Elena watched him from across the room and felt something she hadn't let herself feel in years. Not romance. Not yet. Just a quiet, cautious relief that the world still contained men who were gentle without wanting anything in return. Daniel became a family friend first. He checked in on Naya's cast healing. He brought Noah a model airplane kit he'd noticed him eyeing in the hospital gift shop. Slowly, over months, dinners turned into a standing Friday tradition, and Elena found herself laughing again in a way she'd forgotten she was capable of. He never pushed. He never tried to fill a space he hadn't been invited into. He simply showed up again and again until showing up became its own kind of promise. 5 years passed like that. Steady, healing, quiet. And then Toronto announced it would host the Global Innovation Summit, and Kang Min-jun's name appeared on the keynote speaker list. Elena found out from a colleague who mentioned it in passing, not knowing what the name meant to her, not understanding why Elena's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. Kang Min-jun, her colleague repeated. JM Holdings. He's supposed to be brilliant. You should come to the summit, honestly. It'll be good for the firm's visibility. Elena almost said no. She almost invented a family emergency, a scheduling conflict, anything. But some stubborn part of her, the part that had spent 5 years building something out of nothing, the part that refused to let his presence in the same city send her running again, made her say yes instead. She told herself she was only going for the networking. She told herself the twins would enjoy the science and technology exhibits set up in the lobby. She told herself 100 small lies on the drive to the convention center, and every one of them evaporated the moment she stepped into that auditorium and saw him standing on stage. He looked older. Not in a way that diminished him. If anything, the years had sharpened him, carved something more solemn into his face. He wore his hair shorter now. His hands moved through his presentation with the same precision she remembered, but something in his eyes looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with jet lag. Around his neck, visible just above his collar when he turned, hung a thin gold chain. She didn't need to see what was on it to know. She held Naya's hand, and Noah walked at her other side as they found their seats near the back. And for a while, it seemed like Min-jun wouldn't notice them at all. He was mid-sentence, discussing sustainable urban development, his voice carrying easily across the packed room. Then his eyes lifted from his notes, sweeping the crowd the way speakers do, and found her. He stopped talking mid-word. The silence stretched long enough that people began to whisper, began to follow his gaze toward the entrance, where a woman stood with 2 children, one on each side of her. And even from that distance, even after 5 years, there was no mistaking the shape of Noah's jaw or the particular tilt of Naya's chin when she was concentrating. His microphone caught the word before he could stop himself. Elena! 2,000 people turned to look at her. She kept her spine straight. She kept her hand steady around Naya's small fingers. She met his eyes across that enormous room, calm, unshaken, giving nothing away. And then she guided her children to their seats, as if nothing extraordinary